This is the program we're calling it Neville-Joseph-Dennis Become More. It's part of our Plenty in 2020 series. I'm going to play a motivational item. It is called the Day of Inspiration. I received this from being a member or a part or a person that joined Envato.com, and it is called the Day of Inspiration. It is an item that I enjoyed listening to. It is upbeat, and listen to it for a moment, and I'll come back and we'll talk about Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, just have some conversations about them and their approach to being more. Being more is followed by doing more, and doing more is followed by having more. And for me, as a person who studied both theology and psychology, in particular industrial organizational psychology, and then also mythology, the idea goes in line with what I call constructive developmental psychology. So constructive developmental psychology, and also in line with various theories. The ones that I speak of are basically what I call the hero's journey theory, the transformative learning theory, which is a adult learning theory, and then also a theory that's called appreciative inquiry. And all of these are merged together. I don't consider myself one of those individuals who are relatively strange in regard to this, because I also study individuals who were precursors to me. Those individuals are people like Joseph Campbell, who was instrumental in bringing about the Star Wars series, and he was a mentor of an individual who is named George Lucas. There's also his mentor, Joseph Campbell's mentor, was an individual whose name was Carl Jung. Carl Jung was instrumental in bringing about the type series, what we call the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And that's a very powerful way of a person coming to understand his or her particular way of looking at life. It's very helpful. And the individuals that did that studied the writing, Psychological Types, Psychology of the Unconscious. Those are books that were written by an individual called Carl Jung. And so Jung is spelled J-U-N-G, and Carl Jung. And so Carl Jung was both a mystic, if you call it that, and then also a psychiatrist, I believe. He was a psychiatrist. And so Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell were individuals that studied both psychiatry, but they were also individuals that studied mythology. Joseph Campbell wrote a number of books on mythology. And so those are two individuals. And then there was the individual whose name was William James. William James. William James was considered to be the father of Western psychology. He wrote a book at the turn of the 20th century, I believe, that was called The Variety of Religions. And so he studied, as a psychologist, he studied religions and wanted to understand. And today, there is also a way that people are seeking to study both psychology, and they're looking at it and how a person develops. When I speak of constructive developmental psychology, that's what I'm speaking of there, but also seeking to understand that which has what they call moral overtones. And I've looked at a particular item that has to do with that. It is called hierarchical complexity, and it is the ability to see complexity, that the world is in a certain kind of way complex, the way that it is viewed, and people have different ways of looking at the one world, so to speak. So the world is considered to be complex. So people can look at it, and it's vital when you are emotionally intelligent that you be able to see things from another person's perspective. So that's a vital tool and a vital technique that we need as we interact with each other. And so these are ways that an individual can have a way of actually coming to the point where they understand how other people see things, so that we eventually get to the point that we're able to see things alike together. And those things are helpful, especially when you are a leader of an organization. You can see things from the perspective of those who are leading together with you, and then also those who are workers with you in that organization, those people, so that you treat them with value. You treat them in such a way that they feel empowered, knowing that they are empowered if you will empower them. And so it becomes very, very important as far as they are concerned, your workers are concerned. Some people treat workers as if they are not even human. And so the person that empowers them, there's what is called both transformational and then transactional leaders. And the truth of the matter is, whether you're transformational or whether you're transactional, there's a need for both. Whether you call yourself an authentic leader or whether you call yourself a transactional leader or visionary leader, there's a need to be able to go from one level to the next in order to be an effective leader. And so the best leaders know who they are, and they are able to actually mix their particular leadership style according to the need of the moment. So here's Day of Inspiration. Very, very powerful song, and it's meaningful, meaningful, meaningful. Day of Inspiration. My hope, my desire is that this is a song that has meaning and value and adds strength to your life. So as we go forth in regard to what we're doing here, we've called this again, this entire item that we're doing, that we're working with the individuals of Neville Goddard and Joseph Murphy, and we're talking about the aspect of being more. Being is followed by the entire idea of doing, and then doing follows our follows being, and then doing precedes having. So it's being, doing, and having. And so it is a scientific way, a step-by-step way by which you change your life. And we've called that changing of the life, the result of changing your life. Plenty, plenty in the year 2020. Plenty, plenty in the year 2020. Now, we put Neville first because of the aspect that Neville, when he speaks of change, Neville is an advocate of the thinking process that he calls imagination, the use of imagination. And so I'm referencing him to begin with, is that there is one of the first things that I did, one of the major things that I did as a writer, one of the first pieces that I wrote was an article that was entitled Treasure in Trash. Treasure in Trash. I can send you a copy of this. But the essence of that particular item was that an individual being able to look beyond the surface of an item at the point that we were doing this, myself and my wife actually found a dresser. And the dresser, when she looked at it, the dresser was in the trash, somebody's trash. They had thrown it away. And she wanted that particular dresser. And so we got our sons and we were able to bring it home. And then we actually stripped it, of course. Reluctantly, I joined in with this because I initially didn't even want to get it out of the trash. Didn't see any great value in it. But when we brought it home, and we brought it into the house, and then the decision was made, of course, to do what was necessary in order to make it something of value, so that it looked like it had value, it felt like it had value. Initially, the value was hidden. And so the process that was involved with this was that it needed to be stripped of its outer look. It had been painted green, if I remember correctly. It had been painted green, and therefore it needed to be stripped. In order to strip it, we used, I believe if I remember correctly, we used steel wool and sandpaper, and we needed to strip it, and some varnish, I believe it was, or maybe it was some strippers, some liquid that we poured on it, and then had to strip it so that it came down to the part where it was bare wood. And after we had done those things, we then had to actually put various liquids that were on it, like a veneer and then a varnish, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then this caused its natural grain and color to be seen, so that it could be seen for what it really was at its core. And so as we did that, a person was able to look at it and see that it had value, an innate value that wood has as a result of being wood. And so this is a very, very vital understanding of what we're talking about here. It has to do with that there is an innate value in an individual, and that individual becoming aware of his or her value. That this is very, very powerful, actually, as an individual gets and understands and owns his or her value. That's what we mean when we speak of being, And so even going through the process of being stripped of the veneer of what a person actually has pretended to be in order to fit in and to be made to feel a part of some community or whatever. It's just a facade that a person wears. It's a mask that they have. It's someone that they pretend to be. And if you are one of those persons, you may be playing that game now in your life, or there may have been some incident in your life where you have lost what we call your voice, your identity, and your time. That's what we call trauma. As a result of trauma, an individual goes through a period of time. Trauma could be what we call physical sexual abuse. Trauma could be the loss of someone that you love. It could be the loss of a position, could be the loss of income, could be the loss of health. It could be the loss of a lot of things, a job, wealth, friendships, all kinds of things. People, when they go through trauma, and I know because I've had this particular experience as well as a lot of experiences, people, when they go through trauma, they lose voice in the ability to actually speak their particular truth, to understand what they have gone through and to articulate it to another person. And many times people take advantage of people who will not even allow them to speak their truth, so they lose their voice. And then they lose their identity as a result of not being able to speak their truth. Now, hear me now when I speak about this particular aspect. You may know people around you and you think that they just enjoy so much listening to you. But the truth may be that they have lost their voice, they have lost their identity, and then they may have lost their time. And that what that means is that as a result of the trauma that they have suffered, this particular individual may have just a recurring of the past that's over and over and over again being ran in their mind. It's running all the time in their mind. And so no matter what they're doing, this little tape that's in their mind, this little hit the button and it's just turning. The same story is being told over and over and over in their mind. So voice, identity, time is what happens. You lose a sense of time, living in the past, living the story over and over and over again. And you lose identity, especially if someone tells you this is who you are and who you will always be. And so when you are aware of this, you can become the person who is able to actually redefine who you are. You become able to redefine who you are. And so when awareness, this is what we call consciousness, with awareness, Neville focuses on the idea of imagining that you are someone that you want to be, that you define who you are, who you desire to be. We call it, what are your desires? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? And that's what we mean when we speak of this aspect of plenty in 2020. That you have this opportunity in life, because if you're listening to this, you have an opportunity right now to just think. Just take a deep breath and think deep inside, who are you? Take a deep breath. Let it go. When you take that deep breath, deep inside, think and answer the question, who am I? Do this over and over and over again. Who am I? And answer that question. And if you are inclined to do this more and more, write those answers down. Who am I? Write the answer down. Who am I? Write the answer down. Who am I? Write the answer down. And continue to do that consistently over and over and over again. Who am I? And seek to write down a different answer every time. Do that consistently over and over again. And so, as we said, Neville deals with the aspect of imagination. And when you have the answer, imagine what it is to live as that person, to be as that person, to do as that person, to have as that person. That's what he means when he speaks of consciousness being the only reality. consciousness, that you have an idea of who it is that you are. You have that idea. The riddle at Delphi, it was said, ask the individual, who are you? The Sphinx is supposed to have known the answer to the question, but the Sphinx answered or asked the question, who are you? The answer was found in the Ark of the Covenant, it is said. Who are you? The name of God is the answer to the question, the I am that I am. Who are you? And so consciousness is the only reality, is that what you say that you are, who you say that you are, who are you being? And even in the midst of whatever the situation is, you can always redefine whatever your situation may be. The biblical idea says, let the weak say, I am strong. And so whatever your situation may be, you can say something totally opposite of whatever it is that your situation is. State what you desire. Neville Goddard calls that imagination. Joseph Murphy speaks of that from the standpoint of the intuition, and he speaks of that from the standpoint of the subjective mind, or the unconscious mind, or the subconscious mind. And then, as I said, Carl Jung speaks of that as the aspect of the unconscious mind. In the movies, that is seen as some force that one is fighting, the evil empire that one is fighting, or going into the cave. All of these are the same thing. It is the unconscious mind. It is, I believe it's Joseph Campbell, maybe Carl Jung, the cave that we fear to enter, that we will be afraid to enter it, and then we will call it faith, that whatever happens in life, we will consider to call that faith, as if it was just destined for us to live the way. But enter the cave. Believe again that that which you are destined to be, that you already are. You already are. Have no fear of anything that you already are. And so we're talking about that. That's what we're talking about. That's how it goes together. And the development is to grow into the point that you know that you are who you are. You are who you are. And so we're looking at these individuals as they give us a step-by-step sequential way that we go. And the first step is the aspect of belief. Believe that the idea that you have, you could say the desire is the first step. You could put it that way, and work with the desire, and then to believe that desire is really you. As a matter of fact, if you work with it in a particular way, you could say the desire, and then you believe it. And then I would say to have the desire, and then to be definite about it. I have 4 Ds. My name is Dennis, and I have 4 Ds. I talk about the first D being knowing what you desire, and then the second D is to write it down or to make it definite. And I'm predominantly, I have a faith that's based on a Christian idea, a Christian cosmology. I recognize that there are others, of course, belief systems, but that was the one that I was initially introduced to. I recognize others, and I consent that others see them differently. I believe at a particular point that we are all teaching the same thing, that we're just using different words. But it's a spiritual idea, and the spiritual idea means that it is a mental idea, and in the realm of mentality, we can change things into different forms. And so this is why I can say that I can talk about Dr. Joseph Murphy, I can talk about Neville Goddard, I can talk about Carl Jung, I can talk about Joseph Campbell. I can put this in the way of the psychologist, because they're mental ideas. And if we can understand the different ways that we talk, just like translating a language, because each of these are just symbols by which we're talking about a principle. And the principle here is that there is a desire, there's an idea, there's an innate person that each one of us is that person. And it's vital that we know who we are as an individual. Individual. We know who that person is, and we focus on that individual, that particular person that we're working with. So that idea. And as a result, that focus, that desire, that person that we want to be, the person that has a particular set of gifts, the things that we want to do, and then the things we want to have. So you write that down, and then you, in regard to the spiritual life, it is divinely intended. It is something, the person that you are, the person, things that you do, the aspect that you have. So they are divinely intended. There's a life that was planned for each one of us before the foundation of the world, as I believe it to be. Before the earth came to be, as I believe it to be. It's in our DNA, both spiritual DNA and physical DNA. It's in our DNA. And so this is the way that looking at these particular ideas, so that there is a design. In other words, none of us are accidents, no matter how we showed up here. No matter what happened prior to our getting here, there was a design that brought us here. We're here on purpose. Our life has purpose. So there is a desire. There is definite getting it on paper, owning it. It's my life. It's your life individually. And then it's divinely intended. You and I have purpose in life. And then next, after the divinely intended, is lived on the fourth dimensional level, as I call it. That's the level of imagination. That's being able, no matter what your physical situation may be, no matter what it is, no matter where it is, no matter why it is, whatever that physical situation may be, you and I, in our minds, can use our imagination and step beyond time, step beyond a place, whatever the boundaries may be. We can close our eyes, or even with our eyes open, can see a different reality than what our physical reality may be. This we know, that Einstein, when he did the theory of relativity, when he came up with that theory, he himself was using his imagination. He himself, when he developed E equals mc squared, and the time factor in there is the speed of light. That's c squared. E equals mc squared. Mass times the speed of light squared. And so he himself was using his imagination, as I have read that it deals with the aspect of the speed of light squared. And from what I have read, he saw himself as riding a light wave. So he was traveling faster than the speed of light. And so this is the aspect of using your imagination, what is called the fourth dimension, in the way that I'm speaking of this. And it's a concept. It's an encouragement. We're not talking about scientific fourth dimension. That's not what we're talking about there, whatever that might be. What we're talking about is a concept, the ability to see beyond the physical boundaries of a person's life. So this is what we're talking about here. The aspect of using the imagination or your subconscious mind in a consistent way by which you are able to actually arrive at the point wherein you see that life has meaning, life has value, life has worth, and it's worth living no matter what, because you, as a result of being here, have the ability to construct your life. Take that in for a moment. Going to play again a musical piece that I got from Invarto. I also want you to send me an email at info@iwillrestore.com and place in the subject line just Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard. Place that in the subject line we want to talk with you, give you some tools in regard to using this material. And some of his presentations, of 5 presentations really that go with this series that comes from him. And then also material. There's a book that Dr. Joseph Murphy put out. Actually, there are about 4 books that we have that we worked with in regard to him. And those books, you can be able to read them and study them, and we'll study those with you as well. And those books are able to help you to actually ingest this material, digest this material, so that you make it workable for you. Here is, again, music. There are musical pieces that we get. Music helps you to, again, move into that space. Here's another item that is a motivational piece, inspirational, motivational, that helps you move into that space. Think about this, then we'll come back and have another bit of conversation. Very powerful, powerful musical items that we just shared with you. They're powerful to me. They move me. They're meaningful to me. That's why I share them with you. There are others that I have that I listen to. They, as I said, they have meaning to me. And they help me to get in the space that I need to get in, and to keep ideas moving through my mind, through my spirit, through my heart. And I also am one of these individuals that I've had a life that is meaningful, powerful, something that has really benefited me. I have shared with individuals of late. I've done a bit of study of my own ancestry. I found out things that I did not know before, but I've just found some things that were meaningful. And let me share with you a bit. As I've said to individuals, that one of the most significant things that happened to me in my life was that let me go back and say that when I was 5 years old, my grandparents, my great grandmother, whom I lived in the house with, died. And then my grandmother died. The great-grandmother on my mother's side, my grandmother on my mother's side had already died before I was born. And when my mother was really probably at that point 4 years old, perhaps even 5 years old at that point, when it died. Well, her grandmother, which would be my great-grandmother, died when I was 5 years old. Within 2 weeks of her dying, my grandmother on my father's side died. I, for a long time, did not remember them, did not recall them. And then 7 years later, I had a sister that died. That sister that died was someone that had really changed my diaper, took me to school the first day. It was a significant death in my life. It was painful in my life. It was just painful. I've tried to describe, once I came to the point that I understood what happened, that she was 18 years old, 3 days, and her death, I was at her funeral, and what I do recall was that I was crying, probably what I would call now inconsolably crying. And as I was crying, somebody popped what was an ammonia tablet under my nose. I remember that. And that ammonia tablet, as far as I can tell, sent me into an alternative state. I did not know it at the time, but as I have pieced it together, it sent me into an alternative state. And I stayed in that state, and then this happened in March, toward the end of March. And then I probably came out of that state, so to speak, on April Fool's Day of April the 1st. People played April Fool's Day, and I would wake up. And then I would continue to live my life. 20 years later, I discovered, because I have a nephew who was born on that day, on the same birthday, had the same birthday as my sister that had passed. And I was walking through the house because he was staying with me. And I then was singing happy birthday to him. And I recognized that this was the first March the 23rd that I had been awake in for 20 years, 1984. I understood then what had happened to me. I had not really talked with anybody about my sister's death. I had not really looked at pictures of her funeral or anything like that. My sisters told me, I have older sisters. I'm my mother's oldest son. And they had brought pictures and all kinds of things. I had not paid attention to them. I had not discussed my sister's dying with anybody. I had not grieved really. And now it's like waking up. It's like waking up. And it took years after that. Even with my grandmother, said I still needed time. And only in the past few months, to tell you the truth, through my aunts, I have one remaining aunt on my grandmother's side, on my father's side. And they have shared with me some things that helped me to understand where my grandparents lived because of the death of my grandmother and what happened, 2 of them dying in that same period of time, in that same year. Those things impacted me. And so why am I saying that is because the aspect that what I just said was that trauma can have an impact on you. You go into another state because what has happened is that you've been overwhelmed. Your emotions at that particular time were not able to handle. And no one really helped you to understand what had occurred. The community really did not know that you needed the level of support that you needed. And now you are at the point where you've lived a marginalized life, lost voice, lost identity, and lost time. That was my situation in life. I was here, but there were parts of me that were not here. And I know this from real life. I know this absolutely from real life. There are other pieces of my life that I am very much familiar with. And I practice the things that I have spoken about, I am speaking about. And so it took me a lot of schooling, both formal and informal schooling, and a lot of reading in order to actually come to understand who it is. There's a lady that is on television now, Iyanla Van Zant, and she says in the opening of her program, and I believe that she does wonderful work in regard to helping individuals. I definitely understand what she does and her methods and things of that nature. I understand it very well. She says at the opening of her program, she says, I did my work. I did my work. And so she, in my estimation, went into the cave. She dealt with the things that she needed to deal with. And when you go through a particular process, whatever the abuse, whatever the things that you've dealt with that you normally would think were outside of you, do you discover that inside of you, that there's a power, there's a divine power, there is an identity that you may have actually touched and understood or known from previous experience, because you feel weak, you feel small, you feel like there is no power that is inside of you. You feel that all the power is outside of you and that has been robbed from you. And that's where I felt, how I felt when my grandparents died, when my sister died. It was, what could I do? Why was I unable to prevent this from happening? But I was so small, and I was not able to prevent them from dying. And so all of these things. And so I needed to discover the power that is within me, to understand that no matter what happens outside, inside, I get to define, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to me? And that's the place that Neville Goddard comes. That's the place that Joseph Murphy comes when he talks about consciousness is the only reality. That's the place where they come when they speak of the subconscious mind, that there's a conscious mind that takes in whatever is said, whatever is seen, whatever is felt. There's a conscious mind that takes in whatever is tasted, whatever it may be, that comes in via the five senses. But there's a subconscious mind that gives meaning to this, that gives meaning to this. And you and I have the ability to define what things mean to us. We define that on an individual basis. It is subjective. That means it's subject to our definition, and we should never give to others the ability to define our reality. Never give to another person the ability to define our reality, and if we have given it to them, then take it back. Take it back. Own it. And one of the ways that you discover if you have given it away is to pay attention to yourself. And one of the ways that you discover if you're paying attention to yourself is to keep a record of your own activities. We call that journaling. We call that meditation. We call that meditation and journaling. So you pay attention to yourself. No matter what's going on in the realms of life, whether those are the political realms, no matter who is the president, who's not the president, no matter who's the senator, who's not the senator, no matter what's going on in the business world, no matter what's happening in your life, doesn't matter. Does not matter. Because you are giving meaning to whatever is happening on the outside of you. There, on the inside of you, God lives. The Spirit of God, each one of us have the Spirit of God inside of us, according to almost every sacred text that there is. They locate the Spirit of God and understand, according to the biblical record, it says that God made man in his image and blew into his nostrils the breath of life, and man, or humans, became living souls. And the poet Tennyson says that God is closer to us than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. And so God has never vacated the temple, never vacated the temple, no matter what it is that others say, no matter what religions say or whatever. God has never vacated his temple. If God should ever vacate the temple, then the temple, the body is left without breath. And so if God vacates the temple, then the temple is not. And there's never a moment, because God is in us, through us, as us. And so God is all there is. God is all there is. And even when the body is not, God still is. Even when the physical body is not, there's still the idea that you and I are. How do I know that? Because again, the biblical record puts it this way. God says to the prophet Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb. Now listen. Before I form you in the womb. So there's a forming that takes place in the womb, but there's something called you. There's something called me that exists before there's a forming in the womb. That's the thing to get clear about. That's the thing to get clear about. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, he says to Jeremiah. And what's true of Jeremiah is true of you, it's true of me, it's true of each individual. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. It gives the idea that each one of us is a unique creation of God. Unique. And that's why the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States of America, all of these kinds of records and those that are similar to them, it says that each person is endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Humans are endowed by their individual Creator. So don't even let things like the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, where they seek to declare that only certain people are whole humans and others are 3/5. Don't listen to that foolishness that people wrote down, even though they were the forefathers of the United States of America. They did not have the whole understanding because of their biases, because of their prejudices, because of what they were trying to do, and they may not just had wanted to embrace. I mean, after all, a person like Thomas Jefferson was sleeping with a black woman. You got to be clear on this stuff. And just you and I, in this day and time, who have the benefit of hindsight, in order that we might have insight and have foresight of the times that will come. And so these are what we're talking about. Consciousness is the only reality. Consciousness is the only reality. And so we can form in our minds the reality that we want to live in. Form in our minds. And then out of that image that we have, we can then believe. We can believe it, hold on to it. And Neville Goddard says that as we believe it, it becomes to be. It outpictures itself as our lives. And so this becomes vital in regard to this. So let me say again that there are these articles, these preachments that Neville did. There are 5 individual items that I mentioned in regard to Neville Goddard that we primarily focus on. These are called Consciousness is the Only Reality. There is another one that is called Assumption Hardened into Fact. There's one that is called No One to Change But Self. And then there's another one that is called Living Fourth Dimensional. And then there's another one that is called the aspect of remaining faithful to your idea. Remaining faithful to your idea. And so these are the 5 primary items that we are talking about here. And we are not trying to go over them word for word or anything in regard to that. As a matter of fact, I haven't mentioned either one of these items, their particular content. These items one needs to actually read and understand and follow along in regard to what they have said so that you know exactly how it is that you practice what these instructions are inside of these particular articles. There are other articles as well, or preachments. These are items that Neville actually preached and taught. There's a set of them that are on imagination in particular. There's one called How to Use Your Imagination, how to use it, wherein he gives specific steps. Another one called Imagination Creates, and imagination creates reality, and the secret of imagination, where he's giving specific steps and giving encouragement. Now, please understand when I speak about imagination, when I speak about it here, that today is February the 1st, 2020. And if you are listening to this at a later time, we may do rebroadcasts. My name is Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr., and we're calling this Joseph Neville Goddard, then Joseph Murphy, Dennis Waters, Be More. The year is 2020. We call it Plenty in 2020. We have 4 items that we are encouraging individuals to get. These items are, one is a calendar. On that calendar, there are quotes that come from both Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and myself. And we encourage individuals to actually read these quotes. There's one for each month. And the idea is that you take about 5-10 minutes every morning, every night perhaps, and that you read the quote, meditate on it, and then journal in regard to that particular quote. And so that works for you. And each day to actually write something different, not the same thing. You may choose a word. You may choose a sentence. You may choose the entire item. But each day to write something over the course of a month, you should have 20 to 30 different items that you have written on that quote. That should be exciting and powerful for you in regard to that, because if you do it in the morning, it's the precursor to your day. If you do it at night, then it's the end of your day. Either way, you have a whole day in between if you do it once a day as to what that day has been or what that day will be as to what you write in regard to that, whether it's something that you anticipate happening or something that has already happened, and you look at that day through the lens of that particular quote and your thoughts about it. So that should be very exciting over the course of a month, over the course of a year, 2 months, or whatever it may be, or 3 months. That should be very exciting. And then we'll have conversations about it and have a time we'll all be talking together about it. Various people talking about it. This will be exciting. We'll create a community around that idea as well. Then, so that's the calendar. We have a journal master, as we call it, a journal master. And the journal master is how to journal. There's a way to journal. A person can journal without knowledge, just keeping like a diary. That's one way you can do that, and a person can do that. But there's also a way to journal, many ways to journal. And the journal master gives you a number of ways that you can actually journal so that it is more than beneficial to you. It's beneficial to you in a variety of ways. And so you get to see your thoughts as they unfold. And there are various prompts that you can use that will help you to actually get this down so that your year can bring forth the plenty that you desire. It can bring forth that plenty that you desire. So that's the second item, the journal master. And then there's a journaling book that we have. Our journaling book this year has that really we have a couple of different journals that we can provide you with. One has a very small number of ideas as to journal, but we also have what we call the journal master that has the hero's journey characters or archetypes in it. And you will be able to just read information on the different characters and then they can be an inspiration for you as well in regard to your journaling process. And we will be via email continuing to talk with you about that. We have different courses that you can be involved with. One set of courses is dealing with the hero's journey to become your authentic self. We walk you through that process. That's a very powerful process, that because we talk about this aspect of being. This aspect of being, becoming your authentic self, is also doing and then also having. So we talk you and walk you through that process and teach you in regard to that. And there are all kinds of tools that are involved. One of those tools is this journal that you have in order to come about the process of prompting your thoughts, inciting and inspiring your thoughts, giving you some clues, but you ultimately write down the various things that come to your mind as you develop new thoughts. So the movies and all of those, Star Wars and everything else, as you go and look at and consider these things that we're talking about, they will inspire new things in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, and by the grace of God, set you free to a new life, so a life of plenty in the year 2020. Then the last thing that we speak about there, the journal master. You have the journal master, you have the journals, you have the calendar in regard to that, and then the last thing that we're working with there is we've mentioned the calendar, and we have this whole aspect of being able to receive the emails that we work with as well. We have the emails that will be sent out to each individual, the things that we're doing on the radio program, the podcast as well, that we're working with in regard to this. So each one of these items, we have in mind that that individual is working with us, and we're bringing these items forward in regard to the work that we're doing. And so I'm actually seeking to be online and see what it is that we are working with, so that we can make sure that we have them and bring them forward for you. And this entire thing that we're seeking to do is, again, to make it possible for an individual to understand that they are not, none of us are captives really to the past or to what has happened to us in life or to what has happened to our foreparents in life. That we have the opportunity to decide who it is that we want to be, what it is that we want to do, what it is that we want to have, where we want to go, how we want to live our lives. We have a tremendous array of choices that make up the life that we choose to live. We have the opportunity to make a decision about that which we are, who we are, and what we're doing, and how all of this works for us. And so the desire is that through that living, that we can thereby have this life that we want. We can, by that means, have this life that we want, and that it will be something that will be beneficial to us, something that we actually want, that we desire, that we really have in mind. And that through our own freedom, that we will also be able to share that freedom with other individuals, that we will be able to share that freedom with other individuals. Because it's not just that we will experience a set of freedoms, but that we will be able to share that freedom. Because there are others, of course, that in this world, in this place that we are right now, that they do not enjoy the same level of freedom that we enjoy. And so the intent is that other individuals, that they can actually be helped, they can actually be benefited as a result of what we are doing as well. And so all of these things, as we look at them, we have in mind that in some kind of way, people the world over really will be benefited. So all of these things are what we are hoping for. That is not only, as I said, not only for each of us as individuals, but that individuals um, will actually be benefited wherever they may be, wherever they may be. So all of this is what we have in mind when we speak of living your authentic life, when we speak of the aspect of a person actually coming to the point of being, doing, having, when we speak of the purchase of calendars. All of these things are what we have in mind because we recognize that we are sharing this world, sharing this particular planet, sharing this particular experience, that we are all a collective. And again, individuals such as Carl Jung and others speak of this aspect of the what he calls the what was it? I think it was called the collective um, unconscious. The collective unconscious, I believe, is what he called it. The collective unconscious. And so he spoke of the collective unconscious. And this is this aspect of finding your place in the world, finding your place in the world. Um, it is just something that is very powerful, something that is very meaningful to me. And it's like that we are all one humanity, and that each one of us has a unique gift, a unique set of talents, a unique identity, and we all fit in this tapestry that is called humanity. And we need not rob anybody. Need not take from anybody. We need not desire anything from anybody else. There is abundance for all. There's enough. The text says God supplies all of our needs according to his riches, and that we're able to create, to bring forth, to manifest. And it's wonderful. Nobody feels like they have been stolen from. It's just an idea. It's just an idea. So let me say again that we've got 4 items. I mentioned them. There's a spiritual strategic life planner that we call Through the Gate to Everything Great to Plenty in the year 2020. That is one item. There is what we call a self-awareness journal, which I called, there are a number of these items, that we call them the Inner Journey of Self-Awareness Journal. There's a Heroes Journal, the Star Wars edition. There's a Heroes Journal, the Black Panther edition. And then there's a Journal Master. So Through the Gate to Everything Great is a spiritual strategic life planner. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that previously. Then there is the journal itself that you write. As we said, you can use the various individuals in the Star Wars edition, in the Black Panther edition. And then there's a journal master that has ideas about how you journal. And then there are the calendars. And if you want information about all of these items, one of these items, send us an email at info@iwillrestore.com, info@iwillrestore.com, and just mention whichever one you'd like information on, or all of them. They are part of a fundraiser that we are doing throughout the year. And the calendars are worth it. The month of January is gone, but you can still use that month and the month of February as an incentive to think new thoughts, as to what your life could be and what your life will be as you go forward. What your life could be, what your life will be as you go forward. And we're looking forward to having just a great time in regard to this. But regardless of what you do with any of these items, our encouragement is that you would imagine what your life could be. And not just your own individual life, but the lives of your family, the lives of your community, the lives of your church, of your organization, that you would dream a new dream, regardless of what it looks like in the social realm, the political realm, or anywhere else, in the racial realms. It does not matter what it looks like on the outside. Dream, desire, believe for a greater, better, more abundant life for you and for everybody that you love and care about, and let your life change, and then every life around you change. I know personally that my own life has impacted a whole host of people just all around the world. I already know that. I'm dreaming a larger, broader dream now. That's why I'm on this podcast. That's why I'm on Blog Talk Radio. That's why I'm in school even now. I know what has already happened in my life. I know it. And I believe, I'm certain that Spirit has more to come for me and for you. And so I encourage you to embrace that dream. I encourage you to do that. I know it can be done. I'm going to close this down for now and encourage you to send us an email. We have the items from Neville Goddard. We have the items that deal with the gifts that we have in regard to the items from Neville Goddard. And you could just put Neville and mention that you want the items that go with him. The 5 series, the items on imagination, and we'll tell you how to get those. We can set you up to receive various emails. All of these things to change your life. We guarantee that we can find some way that we can help, and that we can find a mutually beneficial way to bring about change. You can have a plenty year in the year 2020. And then we have the Through the Gate to Everything Great, that entire series of items that we just spoke with you about. Put that in the subject line. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation that is beneficial to you, beneficial to us, beneficial to the entire world. Let's change the world rather than cursing and screaming and saying what's wrong, because that's got our attention. And if we keep looking at it, we'll keep multiplying it. We'll keep multiplying it. We've got to find the answer and focus on the answer more than we focus on any problems. There are people who are doing that. Kobe Bryant just passed a few days ago. And as I was saying, that I've said in a number of places that Kobe Bryant has some wonderful material on using his imagination and what was involved with that, and his practice routine and his discipline, and all of those things that he talked about, how he rose above his situation in life to become one of the greatest basketball players that there ever has been. The individuals like the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena, have done the same thing. And the girls and the individuals that are playing tennis, that they have inspired a whole generation of players that are beyond them. They've inspired these individuals. And athletes all over the world are doing the same things. We involve you. We encourage you to become like these athletes and practice visualization. Practice using your imagination. Practice believing that you can be more tomorrow than you are today, but you are that person already inside. The DNA, the seed is already inside of you. Practice to become that person. God bless you. Send us an email. We'll talk to you later. Take care. We're going to play this out again. Take care. Bye-bye.